Good evening, you're watching Estuary TV News. Coming up, a memorial walk in Barton, all in honour of the local author who wrote the Get Carter novels, and booming business in Hull as the city sees record visitor numbers. And I'll be talking to Ted Stanley and John Hewer about a new production at Louth's Riverhead Theatre. Welcome to Estuary TV News. I'm Hugh Richards. First of all, it's over to Dan Kemp for the news headlines.
Hello there. We're maybe 24 days away from a general election, but the registration deadline for voters is now just 1 week away. The Electoral Commission are reminding voters that they must be registered in order to cast their vote on May the 7th. They are particularly targeting young people, recent home movers, students and black or minority ethnic groups who are less likely to be registered. This is the first general election where registration has been available to do online, making it simpler to have your say. A ward at Scunthorpe Hospital has reopened following an outbreak of the norovirus. Ward 17 had closed for admissions on April the 2nd. Staff and visitors suffering from vomiting or diarrhoea are urged not to enter the hospital until symptom-free for at least 48 hours. Humberside Police are seeking witnesses to an assault at a Hull pub. A woman was left with a broken wrist following the incident at the Spotted Dog pub on Inglemire Lane in the city at 10:45 on Saturday night. A 25-year-old man has been arrested on suspicion of wounding or inflicting grievous bodily harm without intent after she was punched during an argument between two men. The suspect has been released on police bail. Members of the public will have their chance to look around Bridlington's new £25 million leisure centre. East Riding Leisure Bridlington is set to open next summer and will have a 25-metre swimming pool, health suite and various studios amongst other facilities. There'll be a free open day this coming Saturday from 9 till 1 to see how the venue is taking shape. A leading rural insurer is warning that the countryside vote this election season may be faced with unexpected teeth. NFU Mutual are appealing to campaigners visiting rural properties to be extra vigilant as the insurer has had to pay out over £1 million in claims for dog bites at rural properties over the last 2 years. They're reminding people that they have a duty of care to ensure political canvassers are safe on their property. A number of Yorkshire cricketers have been screened for skin cancer. The first team players, including Hull's Stephen Patterson and England player Tim Bresnan, were screened at a hospital in Leeds as part of a sun awareness campaign. Yorkshire Cancer Research is named as the club's charity partner for the next 2 seasons and comes following the passing of iconic commentator Richie Benaud, who died of skin cancer on Friday. And finally, a survey has revealed that running is the most popular in the northeast of England. The sports personality study by the British Heart Foundation also found that runners are people that love being the centre of attention, are extroverts and allegedly vote Labour. That's all from me. Bye for now.
A few months ago, we learnt of plans in Barton for a memorial to commemorate Ted Lewis, the author of the Get Carter novels, who lived in the town for most of his life. Now that memorial has come into fruition in the form of a walk that revisits important places in Ted's life. Dave Nunn, who is a big man but he's out of shape, returned to meet the organisers and see some of the sights.
Ted Lewis was one of our area's most famous exports, responsible for the Get Carter novels. A few months ago I learnt of plans for a memorial to him in Barton, the town he lived in and loved for so many years. Now the memorial walk has started and one of the stops is Baysgarth House, Ted's former school, and he had good times there, as childhood friend Nick Turner told me.
At the grammar school, Ted came under the influence of Henry Treece, and a lot of people in this area will remember Henry with respect and affection. He was an inspiring teacher. Of course, he brought the best out of Ted. He recognised a kindred spirit in a way, and he encouraged him in his writing. He wrote several pieces for the school magazine, and generally speaking, he was the one teacher who pulled Ted through and inspired him to go on to better things in the future with his later novels.
The walk reflects Ted's progression through life, ranging from his school days to his last days. Other locations on the walk include his childhood home in Westfield Road and pubs he used to play in at his youth. There are also nods on the walk to his years in Hull, including playing on the Tattershall Castle paddle steamer in a jazz band. The last location on the walk is the spot he used to play in as a child and inspired locations in his books.
They were lads, and Ted was absolutely adored by everybody, indeed to his dying day when he died at 42. Prematurely, loved by everybody, but he was charismatic and he could carry the riverbank boys down there. They could camp, they could act out these films and have great fun meeting people. freedom was the essence of it, and you can see in the background the freedom that this area does instill. And from this area you can actually see how Barton was. He described it in his books graphically, lyrically, and right at the back of me is the old adamant cement works. They called it the old cements. That's where they played. But he described that in his autobiographical books, and it's exactly the same in Get Carter. It was called Jack's Return Home, the book, in 1970. But even when you see the Newcastle reproduction of it in the film, you can get the feeling and the essence of the words that he uses in his autobiographical book. And it's exactly the same as it is if you actually go down there.
Interest in the walks have been good so far, and when they start in May, it's hoped people will learn more about Barton's famous son.
You're watching Estuary TV News. A little later, Richard Morris will be in the studio to round up a few of the weekend stories. And Dan Kemp will be back to bring you all the sports news. Now, Ted Stanley and John Hewer join me to bring tidings of William Shakespeare from the Riverhead Theatre in Louth. Gentlemen, thanks very much for coming in. Gentles all, thanks very much for coming in. Shakespeare in Debt looks like an intriguing play. Ted, you're the author. What's it all about?
Oh, it's a glorious romp through Elizabethan England with Will Shakespeare and his motley crew of thespians who are the Lord Chamberlain's men.
Right.
It's on at the Riverhead Theatre with the Louth playgoers. A great cast and directed by John Hewer here, who's probably one of the best young directors of this genre of theatre in England at the moment. So
can I have that in writing?
Yes, I was going to say. Is that, has it been an ease to direct, John? Is it?
I think it has, because, as Ted mentioned earlier, is that we know each other quite well now. We've built quite a rapport, so I can kind of often know the kind of slant Ted wants from the actors. So it's wonderful. I'm kind of an in-between, I suppose, between Ted's script and what the actors bring to the parts as well. So it's a very happy medium I play, really, and it's great to have the writer in the rehearsal rooms as well. That's actually very helpful. I think the cast are a bit scared sometimes having the writer in the room, but I find it very helpful. Yeah,
I'm just as scared of them, John.
Oh,
it is not a terribly solemn, serious production.
No.
But that's right. In the Shakespeare, I mean, real old-fashioned Shakespeare was pretty sort of saucy, rompy,
very bold,
comedic,
yes,
wasn't he?
absolutely.
There's a line, that goes straight from Shakespeare to the Carry On film. So that would be very much an introduction.
Absolutely.
But going through Blackadder in between.
Absolutely, yeah. You're not a great fan of people standing at the front of the stage and declaiming.
No, I mean, I think Shakespeare's been spoiled for people by some Shakespearean actors standing at the front and in their high RP declaiming that they would wish for a muse of fire rather than as Shakespeare intended it, and as it was in Shakespeare's time, more like music hall. I mean, it was interacting with the people who went, and the accent was much more Yorkshire with a bit of West Country thrown in, so it would be a muse of fire. And so I think the access to Shakespeare, right, has been denied people a little bit. So this is sort of bringing it the other way. The pendulum swung a little bit, probably more in the opposite direction, but it's fun. It's good fun. It's not for Shakespeare buffs. They'll probably hate it, but come along anyway.
It's a very healthy thing. John, you've been putting it on. How long have you been in rehearsal? How long have you been
we've been rehearsing now since, when did we start that? About mid-March, wasn't it? Mid-March. We had a little read-through. We had an audition first. Open audition, had a read-through. And then the cast went away for a bit and read through their parts. And yes, we rehearse about 3 times a week. And they're a very dedicated bunch. But we're in that interesting point now into production when they're starting to put their scripts down. We're introduced in costume. I had a lighting session this morning. So it all gets a bit technical from now on. So
once you get those costumes on, that's when you know your character, isn't it?
Certainly for me,
it's when you put your shoes on. That's how you know.
It really is. And we had a costume session yesterday, and it went so much fun. It brings so much life and light to the characters, so that they're really going for it now. It's good to see.
Ted, your character of Shakespeare, is he any good at writing?
He's not very good at anything, to be honest. I mean, he's Shakespeare as most people have never seen him before.
Yeah.
But there are some wonderful, outrageous characters, and we have some great actors who are playing them. I mean, Scott Levitt, who plays Pastor Noel de la Mare, who's a glorious Shakespearean actor.
Brilliant name.
is counterbalanced by a very understated performance from...
We'll have to learn more of it about all of that in a moment. Ted and John, please don't go away.
Thank you.
Hull's year in the limelight as City of Culture may be nearly 2 years away, but the benefits are already being felt in the highest number of visitors to the city's museums for 17 years. Dave Nunn visited the Ferrens Gallery, one of the museums that has benefited, and the Trinity Youth Hostel, which is also enjoying growing popularity.
City of Culture may not be for another 2 years, but Hull is already reaping the benefits. Over 500,000 people visited the city's museums, benefiting places like the Ferrens Art Gallery.
In terms of the Ferrens Art Gallery, we've had over 130,000 visitors this year, which has been really good, and it's an increase on last year's figures too. Yeah, I mean, it's really great to increase our figures. The last couple of years we've had some really high-profile exhibitions and varied events at the gallery, and obviously we've got a really strong collection, so obviously it's pulling in the visitors in.
It's not just the museums that are benefiting. The people coming to visit are staying in places like the Trinity Hostel, which is seeing benefits also.
I think a lot of people that actually come here are some of the people that are going to visit the museums. So I think it's quite good that we're contributing to it. But obviously the museums themselves are attracting people to the city, which is obviously getting people through the door here as well.
For the hotels and hostels, it's uplifting to see people from as far away as New Zealand coming to visit Hull on the back of its City of Culture status, and they're taking away good impressions of the city.
They actually love Hull. It's quite nice. A lot of people come, with not much expectation, but then they leave actually quite happy that they've been here. I mean, I've actually had a few people come back. So yeah, I think it's quite good that they're experiencing something different, I think, from what they would expect.
City of Culture already seems to be spreading word about Hull, and if these numbers are anything to go by, 2017 could be a record-breaking year.
John Hewer and Ted Stanley are still with me to talk about their play Shakespeare in Debt, going on at the Louth Riverhead Theatre early in May. You were just telling me a little bit about some of the characters there. Shakespeare, bit incompetent, not very good at writing.
Afraid so. Yeah.
A lot of schoolboys and schoolgirls through the years might have thought that themselves. So who? Well, John, you tell me who is writing all these 37 plays and 118 whatever it is sonnets.
We don't quite throw it all at Will Shakespeare. The way the play introduces, he has written these very fantastic plays, but he's at a bit of a stopgap, so to speak. He's kind of come a bit to an end, really.
Writer's block.
He's got writer's block.
He's resting.
He is, yes. But the debtors are braying on the door. Queen Elizabeth wants a royal pageantry performance, and the deadline's getting nearer and nearer, and he's still got no inspiration. So he starts to call upon, shall we give it away a little bit? No. But he has certain ways and methods to get the actors, get the money, get the script, all in time for the 15th of March.
So the
script comes from a very unusual source.
Yes.
Right. That's very intriguing. You're not going to tell me anything other than that.
No. You have to come and see the play.
Okay, well, I certainly will come and see the play. I look forward to it. It sounds absolutely fantastic. But Shakespeare, you're maybe being a little bit unfair on him there, talking about the correct pronunciation or whatever it's called and the declaiming from the front of the stage. But he always said everything several times, once in a highfalutin way for the fancy people who'd read all the classics. But he always made it pretty clear that, I'm just about to take it behind this arras for a quick snog, for all or a quick stabbing, whichever way it was.
Absolutely.
For the people on the lower part of the theatre.
Well, we sort of cut the highfalutin bit and go for the quick snogs.
Yeah. I'm not increasingly unsurprised by that, Ted. But
the good thing about Ted is that he far more than I must admit, he has a far greater appreciation for William Shakespeare. I admire him as a writer and what he created and the structure he involved and characters he created, but I find the language quite hard to get to understand. But Ted has a very understanding appreciation of him. You do, don't laugh. You do. So it's quite a nice mix because I kind of go, well, I kind of think we need to make this a bit more open, a bit more innocent, shall we say? And Ted's there going, well, let's keep a few in jokes in for the purists.
The aficionados,
yeah.
So just to have a little bit of the clever
nice.
togs
It's
in there
very
as well.
nice. It's very nice.
But it's not just Shakespeare. I mean, we've also included Sting, John Lennon, Oscar Wilde. just about everybody's in it.
Right.
So we'll steal from anybody. We don't mind.
But you're an old hand with theatre. I mean, you're a professional actor yourself, aren't you, Ted?
Well, I was, yes. I'm trying to give it up.
Right. Yes. Trying to kick the habit. Yeah. But you've performed I know you performed on Broadway.
Well, not on Broadway, off Broadway.
Off Broadway. Well, that's much better. That's much more artistic and bohemian.
I played in some quite famous New York theatres now, like the Flea and the Red House, that weren't very famous at the time I played in them, but they were good fun and it was a great time in New York, yes.
So of all the characters in this, Shakespeare in Debt, which is the one that you'd really secretly like to be playing yourself?
Oh, Pastor Nolan. I'd love to play Pastor Nolan.
You surprise me.
Yeah.
He's the big star of it.
He's the one who does exactly what I say people shouldn't do, and that's stand at the front and declare.
Very flamboyant, eccentric, isn't he? Yeah.
Well, that's what we'd all love to be doing, really, isn't it? Centre of attention, really, with all that makeup on as well. Yeah. John, you've got your own theatre company putting on this.
That's right, yes.
Hambledon Productions.
Yes, we're based in, I grew up in Grimsby, I schooled in Grimsby, and yes, the company was set up by myself and my sister about 8 years ago now, and we do a lot of new writing plays. I also write plays, and we've had a lot of successes. Did Hancock's Half-Hour Show, did Educating Rita, and we're currently enjoying great success with a Tommy Cooper tribute show, which
Macbeth
is back
wasn't
here.
his wife a cow. That's got to be the greatest line on Shakespeare there's ever been, hasn't it, in Educating Rita? Shall we just remind ourselves when we can find this fantastic show? It's on at the Riverhead Theatre in Louth. That's Shakespeare in Debt, Friday the 1st, Saturday the 2nd of May, 7:30. Tickets £6, and get in touch, louthplaygoers.com.
Yes.
So, gentlemen, thank you very much for coming along.
Thank you. Cheers.
Time now for our regular reflections, this week from the Rev Nick Brown, Rector of Louth.
We find ourselves just past Easter, that great festival of the Christian year. It's a suitable time to reflect on the depth and the truth of the Christian message. In the week leading up to Easter, the story takes us through the whole range of emotions, from triumph to despair, to betrayal, to death, and then finally to the hope of what is to come in the future, a hope that is transformed by love. So as Christians, we try and live out our lives in this often imperfect world. We're reminded that at the heart of everything is the fact that things can be transformed by that gift of love. It's a challenge for us to reflect that love in the way we lead our lives. It's something that sounds so easy, but in practice proves so difficult, as we meet the challenges of living day by day and looking for the love that exists in all that is and all that we are.
Richard Morris is here now to tell us about some of the stories breaking this weekend. Richard.
Yes, well, I mean, the first major story happened on Friday evening, actually, as it happens. Austin Mitchell bids emotional farewell to Grimsby. He was in the Oaklands Hall Hotel, which I believe is just sort of off the Laceby bypass on Friday evening. Many people attended, and including the former New Zealand Prime Minister Helen Clark. So
yes, she was there.
Yeah,
I have to confess I was there as well. So
yes.
I'm aware of this.
Well, indeed, we had a little chat about this just before we went to air. So, and obviously, she's a member of the United Nations, she's done all these different things. And she said, we go back a long way. I've known Austin since I was a young member of Parliament in the 1980s, and we have kept in connection ever since, which is great to know that, obviously, everyone does work together in politics. Everyone does do all these kinds of things. Well,
they're the same sort of ideologically similar places. Austin comes from, the same place as Helen Clark, and he had as a New Zealand connection. She was rather sweet. She sang a song in Maori.
Yeah. Oh, did she?
I've never had a Prime Minister singing a song to me before.
Serenading.
Me and another 220 people.
But I mean, and he said some fairly interesting things. It looks like there will be no majority, is what he said. While the trend is moving towards there will be a period of negotiation after May the 7th, and a second election could even be called. That's his prediction. That's very interesting, isn't it? And also, Martin Vickers from Cleethorpes went along and said, I've been trying to get rid of Austin for 38 years, so it would be churlish of me to not turn up and say goodbye.
Oh, well, how very gracious of them all.
Guy Martin, Grimsby Guy Martin. That's a pretty bad phrase, isn't it? Grimsby Guy Martin.
Well,
he won a Spring Cup at Oliver's Mount in Scunthorpe at Scarborough over the weekend.
I haven't the faintest idea what you're talking about.
He is a racing driver. He drives very fast motorbikes. I don't know too much about motorbike racing myself. That's all I know from reading this.
Local lad has made good with that, and he's possibly going to be taking Jeremy Clarkson's job on Top Gear, I'm told.
Yes, along with Susie Perry, apparently, who does Formula One on BBC One on a Sunday. These are like the two hotly tipped people to replace them. It could be a very interesting presenting duo.
Excellent, okay.
And finally, a super mum is in Scunthorpe General Hospital, a surrogate mother having her 11th baby for another mother in the hospital.
How exhausting, I would imagine.
Indeed. But Britain's first surrogate mother, Kim Cotton, has described her as an angel and has said that, what she does is so good, obviously, for other people.
Okay.
In terms of surrogates who have had 10 or more, we're probably only talking about 4 or 5 in the whole of the UK. So she's a pretty sort of unique group.
Well, that's 90 months of her life taking up to have 10 babies for other people, which is
a lot of dedication, a lot of work.
Well, a lot of patience. Anyway, Richard, thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you.
Now, Dan Kemp returns to bring you all the sports news.
Hull City's fight to remain in the Premier League continues to be an uphill one after the Tigers lost 2-0 at Southampton. The James Ward-Prowse penalty, conceded by Alex Bruce, and Graziano Pella's first goal in 15 games saw maximum points go to the home side on the south coast. Other results went City's way, meaning they remained 2 points clear of the drop zone. Elsewhere, a goal by Paddy Madden and an own goal provided Scunthorpe United with a much-needed win against fellow League One strugglers Crawley Town. The Iron are now 3 points clear of the bottom 4. Grimsby Town's pursuit of automatic promotion is all but over after they lost 1-0 at home to Wrexham. Joe Clark with the only goal as fellow promotion chasers Barnet and Bristol Rovers both won. And North Ferry United lost 4-2 at home to Colwyn Bay. Jason St Just and Tom Denton with the goals. In Rugby League, Hull KR lost 25-4 at the Castleford Tigers on Saturday evening. Ken Seo with the only try for the Robins, who have dropped to 7th. Elsewhere, Hull FC won 28 versus the Widnes Vikings, who are just 2 points behind their city rivals. Our area's American football side, the Humber Warhawks, suffered a heavy defeat in their first ever home game. The side went down 73-0 against the Peterborough Saxons in the British American Football Association League. And finally, back to football, and in the Northern Counties East Premier, Cleethorpes Town lost 3-1 at home to Handsworth Paramore. Barton Town Old Boys, meanwhile, won 2-0 at Worksop Town. In Division 1, a Sam Baker hat-trick gave Bottisford Town a 3-0 away Humber derby win at Hall Road, whilst Winterton and Grimsby Borough tied 2-2. Louth Town also drew 2-2 at Mansfield. Don't hesitate to get in touch if you've got any stories. Call us on 01472 31 553. And that's all for the sport.
That's all we have time for. Thanks very much, Dan. If you've a story for us, please go to our Facebook or Twitter pages. Details are on the screen. Email news@estuary.tv or phone Grimsby 31 553. Until tomorrow, have a very good evening.
Estuary TV's weather, sponsored by Hornsby's, celebrating 100 years in buses.
Hello and welcome to Estuary TV's weather. Tuesday staying generally dry and cloudy across the Pennines, whilst further east or sunny spells will develop, especially across Humberside becoming warm or very warm, and also breezy, with a maximum temperature of 18 degrees Celsius. Generally dry with bright or sunny spells, although there is a chance of a little rain later on Wednesday.
Estuary TV's weather, sponsored by Hornsby's, celebrating 100 years in buses.